I fuck who I want cause I'm fucking single. I fuck who I want cause I'm fucking single. I just cut my nigga off, he gon' take a loss. I can't be involved, how the nigga sniffing panties.
I never snitch on daddy. Never. I hold a brick for daddy.
Hi people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're reading chapter 2 of A Piece of Cake. I'm gonna be posting this on the same day because I couldn't wait till tomorrow to read chapter 2. Chapter 2 is shorter than chapter 1. I might read chapter 3, but I don't know yet. Why do people act a fool about death? As soon as word got out about Mama's death, folks were at our house trying to get her stuff. Her body wasn't even cold, and they were fighting over who was going to get what. Mama didn't have any sisters, and she only had one brother, my Uncle Junior. His name was Ray, but we always called him Uncle Junior. Uncle Junior was a stocky man who stood about 5'3". He was cocoa colored like my mom and had the same smooth, silky black hair. Good hair is what black folks called it. Not woolly and kinky like mine. He was the only uncle I had, and I loved him a lot. That was one thing about me. I didn't have many people in my life, but those I had, I loved fiercely. Uncle Junior was really quiet, probably because he was a junior high school teacher and was around badass hollering kids all day. He taught at one of the worst junior highs in San Diego, which is where he was the morning Mama died, teaching them badass kids. But as soon as he got the call about Mama, he came to Daddy's. Although Uncle Junior was my only uncle, he was my favorite uncle. He and my grandma lived 5 blocks from us. We lived on 30th and Ocean View, and they lived on 25th and Ocean View. We were always down at their house, or they were always at ours. My mama and her brother were extremely close, so he was like a second father to me. I remember the day I realized he loved me. Uncle Junior and I had gone to Taco Bell to get some food to go. As Uncle Junior got out the car to order the food, he warned me not to touch anything. Problem with that was I loved to drive. Junior and Grandma's car was a 1962 Ford Falcon, and the gear shift was a funny-looking stick that protruded from the steering wheel. No sooner than he closed the door, I climbed into the driver's seat and began pulling up and down on the gear shift as I voiced make-believe sounds of a car transmission, shifting gears. Vroom, vroom. Well, in messing around with the gears, I must have accidentally shifted the car in neutral and in another playful movement released the emergency brake. The car started moving. The Taco Bell sat on a small hill. When the car started moving, it started rolling backward down the hill. I looked out the rear window and saw that I was rapidly headed for a huge tree. My eyes bulged and I started screaming, "Junior, help, help!" I still remember the look of sheer terror on his face as he threw tacos and soda in the air and bolted toward the car. His eyes were now bulging like mine. He caught up with the car as it kept rolling backward. Somehow he snatched the driver's door open, tossed me aside, and he hopped half of his body in. His left leg began being dragged along as he used his right to slam on the brakes. When the car came to a sudden stop, we both lurched forward, and I almost shot through the windshield. We'd come within an inch of hitting that tree. It was then I knew he loved me, by the fear on his face and the way he ran like hell to save me. But after I got over the fact that my uncle loved me, I started crying. Not from any physical pain, but because I knew my mama was going to whoop my ass when she found out what I'd done. She was always getting on me about playing in the car. The more I thought of the spanking I had coming, the louder I cried. Finally, Uncle Junior was able to calm me down with a taco and soda. When we got home, he told Mama that he'd left the emergency brake off. He took all the blame. I never stepped up to say, no, it wasn't him, it was all me. Nope, I let him take the blame because, hell, I knew I wasn't going to get no ass whooping for it. But his covering for me sealed our bond that day. To this day, if you ask him what happened that day, he'd tell you he must have left the emergency brake off, causing the car to roll backward. Damn, I love that man. It was my Uncle Junior who also given me my love for learning. He was a school teacher and real smart. He was always telling me interesting facts and stuff. For example, he told me that my great-great-great-grandmother was kidnapped by an Indian tribe and forced to be a concubine. She got pregnant by one of the braves, and the baby was born under Indian captivity. She and the baby were subsequently rescued by a buffalo soldier, whom she later married. Of course, I asked Uncle Junior what a buffalo soldier was, and as a result got a short history lesson on the historic segregated black cavalry and infantry soldiers who kept order and protected the settlers in the southwestern part of the United States. The only family that I'd ever known were my mama, Larry, who I was constantly trying to get rid of, my grandma, Uncle Junior, and Daddy. My uncle was a very important customary part of my everyday life, especially after Larry went to live with Daddy. Junior would check up on us periodically because Mama and I were two women living alone. I used to put my hands on my hips when he said that and reply, "I ain't no woman," and we'd both crack up laughing. Poor Uncle Junior. He didn't even have time to mourn his only sister's death. Since Mama had left him in charge of everything in the event of her death, he was too busy trying to fight everyone off Mama's stuff while trying to pack it, and trying to tend to me and Larry, and making funeral arrangements, and taking care of his own mama and my grandma, who had Alzheimer's. She was once a school teacher too. Now she just sat. Most times she didn't even know who we were. I remember when Grandma started losing it. She had long hair like my mama, and she used to love for Mama to wash it. But one day while Mama was trying to wash Grandma's hair, Grandma started fighting her. I mean, she just started swinging on her. Now you know where Larry and I got it from. Mama struggled and finally got Grandma under control, but not before taking several powerful blows. Grandma's condition quickly worsened after that. Soon, Mama and Junior had to move Grandma to a convalescent house. It was weird, no longer having Grandma down the street. Hold on, my fucking thigh itch. Okay. It was weird no longer having Grandma down the street from me where she lived most of my life. Mama hated that her mother had to be in one of those homes, so she or Junior visited Grandma every day. Grandma wasn't there long, though. Mama and Junior got a frantic call one night. It seems an elderly white woman with Tourette's syndrome had been placed there. The woman called Grandma a nigger. Grandma hopped out of her chair and took off after that woman. She was going to whip that woman's ass. She may have been severely incapacitated and extremely forgetful to the point where she often didn't recognize her own children, but she remembered the insult behind that word. The convalescent home said Grandma was too violent and had to go. Anyway, all I remember is 1 minute Junior was fighting kinfolk off Mama's stuff, and the next he, Daddy, Larry, and I were sitting in a large plush office. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on because there seemed to be some confusion as to what was supposed to happen with me and Larry. Mama had been dead a couple of days. There was a white man in a black robe sitting behind a big desk. I knew he was a judge because his nameplate said so. Next to the judge was a tall black man I'd never seen before. There were two other white men who I later learned were lawyers. My daddy, Uncle Junior, me, and Larry. They were discussing what was going to happen to us children. The tall black man said he wanted us to go with him. Daddy said we was going with him. The judge looked like he didn't know where we should go. "We going with our daddy," I said defiantly as I climbed up into my daddy's lap. He wrapped his arms around me protectively. I'd always been headstrong and straight out. I ain't never had a problem letting someone know what I thought. Mama once told me I was too straight out. Once we were in the grocery store and this old white man bent over, gave me a wide grin and said, "Hey, pretty lady." He didn't have no teeth. So I asked him, "Where your teeth at?" Before he could answer, I continued, "Ain't you got welfare? My friend Marcia got welfare, and they gave her mama a whole new set of teeth after her daddy knocked them out. You should go down to the welfare office and see if you can get some new teeth." Mama rushed over and cupped her hand over my mouth and looked at the man sheepishly. He looked at her embarrassed. I looked at both of them confused and pissed because I didn't get to finish my sentence. I was trying to help the man. I mean, hell, he needed teeth, and I knew where he could get some. "Cup, some things don't need to be said," Mama scolded as she rushed me out the store. "Girl, we gotta get you some Calc." I didn't know what Calc was, but if it meant you couldn't speak your mind, I didn't want it. All of the grown-ups were arguing. For some strange reason, the tall black man said he wanted us. I didn't want him. I wanted my daddy and my Uncle Junior. The judge said Larry and I could stay with Daddy at least until after Mama's funeral, which was in a couple of days. He said by then he'd have decided where we were going to go. Daddy took us home. The next couple of days were a really quiet, solemn time. I kept waiting for folks to bring over food. I mean, a few months ago, my friend Rosemary's dad had died. Actually, he was... Actually, he was killed during a robbery. After he died, Rosemary's family brought all kinds of food over to their house. Cakes, pies, chickens, turkeys, all kinds of good stuff. So when my mama died, I kept waiting on my folks to bring me some food, but no one did. It didn't matter because, like I said, those were some really fucked up days. Larry and I didn't even fight. We were sad and we missed our mom. But it was more than that. I guess we was too worried about what was going on. Yeah, it was really quiet around there. I wanted to wear a really pretty red dress to my mama's funeral. Lori said, "You supposed to wear black to a funeral." But black wasn't my favorite color. Red was. At the top of my lungs, I started screaming, "I want to wear my favorite color to my mother's funeral." "Let her wear what she wants," Daddy snapped. He had been talking less and less. He now spoke as few words as possible and always in a harsh, abrupt phrases. "Yeah, bitch," is what I wanted to say. Instead, I said, "YEAH," but in a "you tell her, Daddy" kind of voice. Junior said he was bringing Grandma to Mama's funeral. I don't think she realized what was going on. Junior said that when he told Grandma Mama died, she cried for a moment and then just went off into a blank stare. Or maybe she felt the way I did about the whole thing, helpless. It was raining the day we buried my mama. A lot of people came, great aunts, great cousins, uncles, a lot of folks crying. Don't know why. Not only did none of them ever bring any damn food, most of them never even called us, never said, "You and the kids need some help? You got everything you need? Kiss my ass," or nothing. See, my mama was sort of the white sheep of the family, and she didn't like folks in her business. Stop! Family likes to get in your business. Move. Now move. Yeah, I'm sorry. Family likes to get in your business. But mama, like me, was extremely private. Oh, we'd show up at family events. We just didn't let them get in our business, which pissed them off. They called us uppity. Anyway, now they're crying and carrying on. Probably out of guilt because their show wasn't love. You can't show love to someone when she's dead. Even I knew that. The dark gray clouds created a dreary, drab day to match my dreary, drab attitude. The rain made the ground wet, mushy, and difficult to walk on. For the intimate, the mortuary had set out two rows of chairs in front of Mama's casket for some of the family members. But no one wanted to fight their way through the mud to sit on them. Seemed to me like we owed it to Mama to make the effort. They were getting ready to put her in the mud, but folks didn't want to walk on it. Assholes. I marched right through that mud and sat in the first chair. Solemnly I sat, the tears mixing with the raindrops falling down my face. Soon Daddy came and sat, then Uncle Jerry, leading Grandma, then Larry. Kelly and Lori soon followed. No one else did, though. They didn't want to get wet. And they called us uppity? Anyway, the preacher was talking about the Lord giveth, and then he went into something about dust to dust. I just sat there, my skinny black legs dangling. I said goodbye to my mama and wondered where the fuck was this God that the preacher kept talking about. I didn't know much about God, except that if you pissed him off, he'd get you one day. My mama knew God. She was raised a Methodist. In fact, her daddy was a Methodist preacher. Still, Mama said she wanted more from God, so for the past couple of days, she'd been searching for more. I gotta go with her on some of those searches. First, we tried the Jehovah's Witnesses. They were cool, till on earth they didn't celebrate Christmas. God or no God, I wasn't giving up Christmas. Then we tried the Muslims, or the black Muslims, as Mama called them. I didn't like them because when we got to their church, which they called a mosque, they made us change our clothes and put on some of their clothes, floor-length dresses and material to wrap our heads in so our hair wouldn't show. And they searched us too, which pissed me off. But Mama seemed to understand. She said it was because white folks thought the Muslims were militant, so white folks was always messing with them, harassing them, arresting them, threatening them. Mama said the Muslims had to be careful, so that's why they were searching folks. During Mama's God search, we tried a few other religions. I never really did care one way or the other. I never really seriously thought about God because no matter what the religion, they all wanted you to be perfect, and I knew I was far from perfect. So I figured God wouldn't want to mess with me. I don't know which religion Mama finally decided on. Maybe she realized she didn't need a particular religion to know and love God, or for God to know and love her. Whatever she decided, she also decided that she wasn't going to choose for me. She wanted to wait until I was old enough and then let me decide my religion. Sitting there staring at my mama's casket, I wondered why God didn't save my mama. I decided whoever and wherever this God was, he must not like me very much because instead of saving her, he killed her. And since he didn't like me, I didn't like him. In fact, I decided I hated him. So there, I sat, staring straight ahead, eyes blank, wishing the preacher would shut up about God. Soon enough he did, and folks began making their way back to their cars, some doing a light sprint to get out of the rain. I didn't move. Soon, Daddy, Uncle Junior, and the others slowly rose and began heading for the limos. I continued to sit. They started to lower my mama's casket into the ground. Still, I sat. Finally, Dad came, scooped me up, and carried me to the car. A couple of days after Mama's funeral, we had to go back to the judge's office. The tall black man was there again, and he was wearing the same suit. The two white lawyers were also there. The judge finally introduced the tall black man to me and Larry. "Children, this is Mr. Burns, your father." He said it so nonchalantly as if we were reacquainting us with an old familiar friend. My father? My father? If I didn't know this white man was crazy before, I sure knew it then. "That ain't my daddy," I screamed as I ran to my daddy and climbed upon his lap. "This my daddy." Daddy scooped me up and gently stroked my hair. There was a tear running down his cheek. This was the second time in my life I'd ever seen my daddy cry. Second time in less than 2 weeks. "I'm sorry, Mr. Long," the judge said to Daddy, ignoring my outburst, "but my hands are tied. California law clearly states that when a parent dies, the surviving biological parent gets first choice as to the custody of the children, absent of showing of unfitness. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to give the children to Mr. Burns." "Unfitness?" Daddy yelled as he bolted out of his seat, almost dropping me to the floor. "Unfitness? I'll give you unfitness. Where in the hell has he been for the past 10.5 years? Where in the hell was he when my kids were sick, when my kids needed school clothes, during their recitals and ball games? Huh? Where the fuck was he? Why weren't they his kids then?" I had never seen Daddy so pissed. I decided that if he went for the judge, I'd have his back. We'd kick that white man's ass, talking about that tall black man was my daddy. That wasn't my fucking daddy. "Please, Mr. Long," the judge begged. Please watch your language. The judge was scared. I could tell by the way he was fidgeting with the papers on his desk and erratically moving things around. Sweat was pouring off his face. The tall black man, Mr. Burns, he was scared too. He just stood there not saying a word. I was confused. How could Mr. Burns be my daddy? So what if we had the same last name? I never saw him before in my life. He wasn't there when I had to go to the hospital to get my tonsil out. He wasn't in the front row for my first violin recital. He didn't build my fancy red stove. My daddy did. See, my daddy could build stuff really well. So he built me this toy stove. It looked just like a real stove, and it was almost as big as me. Daddy painted it red, my favorite color. It had burners and knobs and everything. It even had a little oven door with a window, and when you opened it, there were 2 baking racks inside. All the girls in the neighborhood wanted to play house at my house so we could cook on my stove. Mr. Burns never built me a damn stove. He never sang to me either. My daddy used to sing to me every night before I went to bed, even after he and Mama didn't live together anymore. On our weekends together, he'd sing to me. He'd tuck me into bed, and in my sweetest daddy's little girl voice, I'd say, "Daddy, sing everybody." And he'd sing, "Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody falls in love somehow." I don't know this song. I don't know how it goes, so I'm gonna probably put it in. I loved that song, and I loved my daddy. That tall black stranger was not my daddy. The room was chaotic. The white lorries were arguing. Daddy and Mr. Burns were arguing. The judges were scared. Uncle Junior was trying to keep everyone calm, but it wasn't working. "I love my kids," Mr. Burns abruptly shouted. Was he trying to convince us or himself? "Well, if you love them," Daddy sneered, "where's the $18,500 in back child support you owe?" The room grew suddenly silent. My daddy paid child support for us. I knew he did because I remember when he and Mama were in front of the divorce judge. The judge had looked at some papers my daddy had given him and said, "I see here that they've got you down for child support. You don't have to pay for these kids." "Sure I do," Mom, Daddy replied. "They're my kids." Mama later told a friend that Daddy never missed a payment, and he still gave us our allowance, which personally was all I cared about. Child support and visitation, that's all my daddy wanted out of the divorce. He wanted to pay child support, and he wanted to be able to see his kids. And my mama was so nice, she gave him both. But Mr. Burns ain't never paid 1 dime in child support. Pay us? Hell, he never even called us, came to see us, wrote us. I had no idea who he was. The judge looked so sad. Seems in California, it didn't matter if you never paid for your kids. Didn't matter if you never visited them, saw them, loved them, or sang to them. None of that mattered at all. All you had to do was have them. "What about me?" Uncle Junior asked. "Why can't they go with me? It just doesn't make sense to take them from their only family and give them to a complete stranger so soon after losing their mother." The judge looked at Uncle Junior like he really understood his dilemma. He replied that I couldn't live with Junior because I was a girl, and they won't let a girl go to a home where there's not a woman in the home. And since Uncle Junior wasn't married, there wasn't a woman in his house. I later learned that my father married Lori just days after my mother's funeral. His lawyer had told him he didn't have a chance in hell to get us because he wasn't a blood relative, let alone the biological parent. But the lawyer said he really didn't have a chance in hell if he wasn't married, because of the requirement that a woman be in the house. So he married Lori and moved into her apartment, which was larger. The plan completely failed. Meanwhile, I was unaware of my daddy's reasons for marrying Lori. I just took it as a sign that he didn't love my mom, which gave me resentment against him I would carry for years. Besides, the judge continued, the system is designed to keep the children together, so that together with the fact that Mr. Burns is their biological father gives me no alternative. "Well," Daddy yelled, "the system's fucked." The judge repeated that under the law he had no choice but to give us to Mr. Burns. Before anyone could respond, Mr. Burns said, "What about the money?" The room grew silent again. "What money?" the judge replied. "The insurance money their mother left them. I understand there's an insurance policy. Whoever gets the children gets the money, right?" The judge looked confused. He quickly rifled through the piles of paper on his desk. "Ah, yes," the judge said. "Yes, there's a life insurance policy that requires 2 payments, one at age 18 and another at 21. However, it seems that the children's mother has placed the life insurance proceeds into a trust fund and has named her brother Ray as trustee." Just what does that mean, Mr. Burns snapped. Now he looked pissed. Well, the judge replied, it means that no matter who gets the children, Mr. Stearns controls the trust and therefore the life insurance money. So that's it, I said to myself. It didn't take a rocket science to figure out that Mr. Burns never wanted us. He thought he had to have us to get the life insurance money. And now he was stuck with 2 kids and no money. Served him right. Uncle Junior chuckled quietly. He too was enjoying the fact that my mama was yet getting the last word. The judge, unfazed by Mr. Brown's sudden interest in the life insurance money, was continuing his instructions about what the law required him to do. He told Daddy to hand me and Larry over to Mr. Burns immediately. Daddy began crying. Uncle Junior began crying. Larry, overwhelmed, began laughing hysterically. I started screaming, "No, no!" I wrapped my arms around Daddy's neck and held on for dear life. Daddy was trying to calm me down in between shedding his tears. Larry was now wrapped around Uncle Junior's leg. It must have been quite a sight. One skinny black girl wrapped around Daddy's neck like a scarf, wailing at the top of her lungs, and one skinny black boy wrapped around Uncle Junior's legs like a cobra, wailing at the top of his lungs. Daddy and Junior were each trying to hush our cries and gently pry us off. Wasn't working. Finally, Uncle Junior asked the judge, lawyers, and Mr. Burns to give him and Daddy a few moments alone with us. Mr. Burns stormed out of the room. I don't think he was pissed because we didn't want to go with him. I think he was pissed because now he had to go with them and he wasn't getting any money. Once they left and Daddy calmed us down, Daddy, Larry, Uncle Junior, and I all sat in a close little circle. Daddy told us he loved us and that he always would. He told us to remember that as long as we remembered our mother and carried her in our hearts, she would not die because her spirit would live on in us. Soon he couldn't talk anymore. He was crying too hard. Uncle Junior wrapped one arm around Larry and another around me. He told us that he too loved us and that he would always be there for us, no matter what, and that if we ever needed to call him, he couldn't talk anymore either. During the next several years, Daddy, Lori, and Kelly would move around and change phone numbers quite a bit. However, Junior refused to move or change his number. He wanted to be sure that if we ever needed him, we would always be able to find him or get in touch with him. To this day, he still lives in the same house and has the same phone number. The 4 of us stood there in a group hug for a few moments, crying. I was wishing we could stay like that forever, but soon the judge came in and said we had to go. I walked out backward, tears rolling down my face. I waved goodbye to the only real family I ever knew. I waved till I rounded the corner and couldn't see them no more. Even then, I kept on waving. Even after I was in Mr. Burns' car and we were driving off, I must have waved for 10 minutes. The 4 of us would never be together again. That is sad. That's actually really sad. Okay, chapter 3 is really, really short, so I'm just gonna read it real quick. Mr. Burns was pissed. He took off out at that court parking lot like he was rushing to a fire, swerving and weaving in and out of traffic. Larry and I didn't say a word. Besides, what would I say to him? What do you say to a stranger who you just found out is your father and he was driving like a maniac? I was too scared to talk. Shit, I just hoped his crazy ass didn't kill us all. The veins in Mr. Burns' forehead were popping out. He was yelling about how his house wasn't ready for us. He never bothered to explain why if he wasn't ready for us. He had fought my daddy so hard to get us. He said that until he was ready, he was going to send us to live with a lady who ran a foster home. Didn't matter much to me. Mama was gone, Daddy was gone, Uncle Junior was gone. Everybody I loved was gone, except Larry, and they could have him. I didn't know what a foster home was, but I hoped they had food. I was hungry. No one said a word when we pulled into the parking lot of Mr. Burns' apartment building. As we parked and got out, a large black woman got out of a car parked beside us. This was the fattest, ugliest, blackest woman I'd ever seen. She stood at least 5'11" and weighed 300 pounds. Her arms looked like a couple of gigantic watermelons that had been strung together and hung from her shoulders. Her big arms led down to her equally gigantic hands. and she had black moles all over her face. She wore a short black afro and had a deep, husky voice. Mr. Burns called her Diane. He introduced her to us as Miss Dobson. She bent to shake my hand. She was so huge. As she leaned over, I was sure she was going to topple over onto me, but she didn't. She gripped my hand hard, so hard it made me wince. Then she wrapped her huge hands around Larry's to shake his. I could tell she shook his hard too, because once she let go of his hand, he started to shake the pain out of it. Mr. Burns got our bags out of his car and threw them in the trunk of Mrs. Dobson's car like he was throwing out yesterday's trash. Go with her, he barked at us. I'll come and get y'all later. We were too sad to argue and too scared to question what was going on. I suppose we thought it didn't really matter much anymore, anyhow. So we miserably quietly obeyed. As we climbed into Mr. Dobson's car, a skinny little black girl sitting in the front seat spun around and proudly introduced herself as Connie, Mr. Dobson's daughter. Mrs. Dobson stood outside for a moment talking to Mr. Burns. I could hear her asking him about the money. Mr. Burns, still pissed, didn't want to talk about it. He told her that something had come up and he needed to do some research on it, but he'd get back to her. Okay, she snapped, but make sure you do. I didn't drive all this way for nothing, and I don't keep nobody bratty kids for nothing. With that, Miss Dobson climbed into the car and we drove off. Larry and I never even saw the inside of Mr. Burns' apartment, and I never saw Mr. Burns again. Wow. Let me see how fucking long chapter 4 is. Oh no, I ain't reading chapter 4 right now. Alright, so that was chapter 2 and 3. I hope you enjoyed, because I did. I'm not gonna lie, I might read another chapter tonight because this book is so good. But this video is coming up on 32 minutes, so I'm gonna end it right here. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back same time tomorrow. Bye.